Okay, at that point, I'm going to hand over to our keynote speaker today, which is Sexton. Christine is Director of Corporate Information Computing Services here at Sheffield. Okay, thank you.
Am I on? Oh, yes, I am. Oh, thanks, everybody. And thanks for inviting me to come and talk to you. And I would like to welcome you to Sheffield and the sunshine. Those of you who were here last night know that it hasn't been sunny forever. It has actually been quite dramatic. And I did think, what a wonderful time to have a conference called Changing Landscapes, because we have had quite a few changing landscapes recently. And I think there's some messages for us in that, really. So what I'm going to do is talk about some changes that are happening, in, if you like, in my landscape as an IT director, and how they might affect the services that we offer, and for you then to think about how that might affect the sort of digital skills, the training that we might need to offer staff and students. I did think when I was putting this talk together, an alternative title might be stating the bleeding obvious, and I apologise if that's how it seems to some of you. But I'm going to just sort of pick out a few things, mainly from this Wordle that I did. It was a talk I was doing a few months ago, actually, and it was called Challenges. And I took the talk I'd given and put it into a Wordle, and these are the things that came out. And interestingly, that some of the words in there are the ones I'm actually going to talk about. You'll also have to excuse me if I have to flick two computers at once because of the way I've got this set up. So they're the four themes I'm going to talk about. Consumerisation, mobile, cloud and social media. All fairly obvious, you probably all know about them, but I just wanted to sort of pick out a few things from them, look at the impact of those themes and the challenges that it's presenting to us. They're all linked together, so it's actually quite hard to talk about any one of them. So you'll find me talking about them all. And the only other thing that's not up there that I will mention from time to time is what I can only describe as a really rapid change in technology. So if I start with consumerisation, and what do I mean by that? Well, it's probably fairly obvious. I'm talking about the technology that's all around us, technology in our homes, technology in our social life. We used to come to university, to our place of work, to get access to the best technology we could. I remember students used to turn up in Freshers Week and say, do I get an email account? Do I get an email address here? Now they come and say, oh, do I have to have another email address? You know, the technology we have in our homes, in our social life, is often much better than we get here. It's also always on. It works. If something fails at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, you don't think, well, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow morning till they open up again before I report it. So there's this need and this desire for 24/7 support. The interfaces into most of the technology we use in our social and home life is very good. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. And there's so much around that's free. We don't pay for anything, we just download so much free stuff. And I think the other important thing about consumerisation is the innovation. It's in the consumer space that the innovation is happening in technology. That's where, really, if you want to know what's happening, you look at what's happening in the consumer space. There's a massive show. It's held in Las Vegas every January. I've never actually managed to make it there. I would quite like to go one year. It's called the Consumer Electronics Show. You'll see it all over the technology press. And it's where nearly every innovation in technology has been demonstrated over the last couple of years. And I always quite like to give a few examples. It amuses me when I'm preparing these talks to look for things that I think are quite innovative. Some of them are fairly obvious. The one in the top corner there, the Fitbit, I'm wearing one. I know at least one other person in the room is wearing one because we talked about it over coffee. You know, these things monitor how many steps you take. You can get them so they monitor things like your heart rate. This one monitors how well I sleep. It lies, I have to say. I wake up thinking I've had a terrible night's sleep, and it tells me I've been asleep for 8 hours. These are my scales from home. They're Wi-Fi scales. I stand on them occasionally. not very often. And it transmits my weight to a server, and I have a little graph drawn on my iPhone of how much weight I've either lost or not. The Hoover, we all know about these little robotic Hoovers. We have 2 of those that work in our data centres. They whiz around all day and all night in our data centres hoovering up. I am reliably assured one of them is called Christine by my Unix staff. This is a good one up here. I don't know anybody who knows what that is. If you can see it, it's called TweetP. Anybody have any idea what that is? It's a little sensor that Huggies have brought out that goes in a baby's nappy, and it tweets you when the nappy needs changing. I tell no lies here. There is an app that you can get on your iPhone called TweetP, and it monitors how many nappies you've got through in a day, and it works out when you need to buy more. It's all on sale at the moment. That's a smart fork. It monitors how fast you eat and what you eat, and you have an app on your phone, and if you're eating too fast, the fork buzzes and tells you to slow down. We all probably know about the plants that tweet you when they want watering. These are smart cooking thermometers. You put them in your food, and you have an app on your phone, and you can monitor your cooking from a distance. I didn't say all of these were useful, by the way. I said they exist. That's a football. It's actually just the skeleton of a football with a sensor in the middle. It's linked to an app on your phone called Kick, so you can kick a football, and it tells you, it measures things. Not really good at football. And it basically, on your app, it tells you how to improve your game. These 2 are things that you can go on to Amazon and buy now. Internet-enabled fridge, internet-connected cooker. The fridge monitors what you've got in it, and believe it or not, it sends recipes to the cooker and suggests what you might cook according to what's in your fridge. My big fear is when the scales start talking to the fridge. This was demonstrated at the CES Consumer Electronics Show. You know, flexible paper, flexible screens are happening. They're here. This is a restaurant in London. It's called Inamo. I think it's been open about 3 years, and it has display tables where it displays the menu basically and the plates, what they look like. And if you want to know what a different menu item looks like, you touch it, the plate changes. And when you want to order, you do it all from the table. And my favourite, this is I was talking to somebody from the BBC a few months ago. These are something they're experimenting with at the moment. This isn't really consumer technology. I just put this in because it amused me. Sorry, somebody's tweeted about me, and I can tell you who it is. I'm seeing at the back because my phone's just buzzed. Quite funny. So these are called telethrones. That's actually 2 separate pictures. These are 3D holograms. So instead of Skyping somebody just in 2D, the idea is that you will sit here and look at a 3D hologram, and that's the other room where it's happening. Aren't they fab? Telethrones, I think they're wonderful. And there's so many things being connected to the internet these days. But I found this the other day, and this is a Wolfram page. Some of you probably know Wolfram Alpha. This is a page which is dedicated to collecting information about every device that's connected to the internet. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them on there at the moment. I also mentioned free stuff. This is just free stuff you can use. I ought to update this really. This isn't a page of stuff that's available. This is a page of stuff that I worked out last year of things that I'd used, that I'd downloaded and used. So what's that doing to us? Well, it's drastically, I think, changing user expectations of what we deliver. So we've got an increasing demand for services. The expectations of what people want is changing, coupled with this rapid changing technologies. You've got really easy access to services. So I mentioned Dropbox on there. Why would anybody save their files on our file systems when they've got Dropbox? And I mentioned good user interfaces. My dad is 86, and I got him a computer when he was 82. And the very first week he had it, he learned how to buy things. He actually bought my mother a Hoover on Amazon. He was very proud of this. You notice he bought my mother a Hoover, not himself one. And he just worked out how to do it. Really easy to use. Now, you don't need a training course to work out how to use Amazon or Tesco or NatWest. How many of you have purchasing systems in your own institutions where you don't need any training to use them? Ours in Sheffield, we run e-procurement on SAP, and I think you need a half-day training course to know how to use it. So there's this expectation that interfaces are easy. and they're not always in our situations. And I think the other thing I mentioned was that things are always on. People expect 24/7 cover. We have a 24/7 building on the campus there, that's our information commons. Internationalisation means that we have campuses in different parts of the world, probably on 8, 6, 7, 5-hour time differences. And people jet off to conferences in different time zones. You'll notice I quite like photographs, and I'm very conscious of now things are recorded and put on the web, that you can't just go onto the web and rip off photographs like you used to. So I tend to use my own. So I do have some strange photos on here. And I think, this is an issue. We used to, if something fell over at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, if our printing services fell over, often nobody would know until we got back to work on the Monday. And now we get phone calls all the time about things that have broken at weekend and evening. So we really have to work out how we can offer 24/7 support. So that's the consumer sort of space. The other thing I want to mention is mobility. Right, this is Ed Izzard. A few years ago he ran 43 marathons in 51 days. He ran through Sheffield. This is him running through Sheffield. Now, you might think that's mobile enough as an illustration of mobility. But just before I took that picture, I took this one. And he'd just run 23 miles. And he was tweeting while he ran on his iPhone. And I know he was, because I was following his tweets to work out where he was in Sheffield. Now, I think that's pretty mobile myself. We've just done a survey of our students of what devices they own. 60% of them own a smartphone. That's gone up from last year when it was about 50%. And of the 40% who don't own a smartphone, half of them are about to buy one. It says on there 90% have a laptop. We think that's not right. The last time we did this survey, it was 95% had a laptop. And we think we've asked the question in a slightly different way this year. We asked, what device do you use to access Kix services? Kix is us. Whereas previously we said, what do you own? So that may have affected the answer slightly. I think the interesting one, the one I really wanted to point out, was tablet and e-reader. If you add them two together, it's 29% own either a tablet or an e-reader. Last year it was 7%. So huge increase in the number of devices that people own. And we are, it's fair to say, entering the post-PC era. Apple sold 100 million iPads last year. And I think the way we use technology, it's changing from creating content at our desks to consuming content on the move. We're becoming much more mobile society. As I said, the largest growing technology market is the consumer one. And some interesting figures there. It says that their tablet sales will overtake PC by the end of this year. I think it's probably going to be sooner than that. I think most people think it will be sometime during this year. And this is Gartner prediction that by 2017 there'll be more words typed on glass than on physical keyboards. So we really are entering a post-PC era, which is interesting, given that it was only April 2010 that Steve Jobs stood up with that tablet. And now there's been a proliferation of tablets now, it's not just iPads. But that is so quick. That has impacts on us. One of the impacts I just thought I'd mention is on our infrastructure. The building here, you might recognise, you're sitting in it at the moment. This is our information commons, which is our 24/7 learning facility. When we built this, opened it 5 years ago, state of the art, we thought we'd future-proofed it. 2 years ago, over the summer, we had to rip out the wireless infrastructure and put a new one in, because it couldn't cope with the number of connections. People weren't walking in with one device, they were walking in with 2 or 3. And the capacity of that building is about 1,500, and we were noticing sometimes 3,000 devices connected. The reason I put this shot up, that's the edge where we are. You'll notice round us, it's a new student village. We opened it, most of it opened about 3 years ago. We designed it to be absolutely state-of-the-art. Every bedroom had an Ethernet connection in. We thought this would be wonderful. Students could plug their laptops in and get high-speed internet access. We spent nearly £3 million last summer putting wireless in to all the bedrooms. The students don't want to sit at a desk with their laptop plugged in. They want to sit on their beds with their iPads or their laptops or with their friends. So, this change in consumer ownership and mobility has had a big impact on the way we deliver our services. So, third one I wanted to mention, cloud. That's an interesting one. Lots of cloud services available, loads of them. And I think it's fair to say that cloud isn't really changing our business. Our business is learning and teaching and research, but it is changing very much the way we do our business. It's about IT becoming a lot more service orientated, and many cloud offered services, or much infrastructure I suppose, is what I would call commodity now. If somebody can do it better and cheaper than you, why wouldn't you let them? And there are various, I think, advantages about going to cloud. Capacity, massive capacity with cloud applications. It's more reliable. You can use it, it's the burst applications there, is when you need something quickly, a lot of power, but you don't need it all the time. UCAS, for example, use cloud for times like clearing. So they have stuff in-house and then they burst out into cloud when they need a lot more capacity. It's very cost effective, and in some cases it's free. I'll mention that in a minute. It's a good business continuity development. But I think the biggest thing there, the three bottom ones, you can improve the way you deliver your services, vastly improve the way you deliver your services if you go to cloud, because that's, again, a lot of where the innovation is, and it's where the agility is. It's where people can develop things quickly, bring them to market quickly. And I think cloud is about value, not cost. People will talk about moving to cloud to save money, whereas I think you should move to cloud to make things better. The impact, what does it have on us? Well, if we move to cloud services, I'll put Google up there only because we are a Google site in Sheffield. We moved all of our staff and students to Google. I couldn't believe this actually when I worked it out. We moved students in 2007 and staff in 2009. I don't run email, calendar, file storage, chat, video conferencing, desktop to desktop is all done through Google. We're about to move our voicemail to be integrated with Google Apps. I know you're getting a talk later today from York, who are following a similar path, and I think you'll find that a really fascinating case study. Google, sort of about being cost effective, is free. Now, there's obviously caveats on free. Somebody once told me that free software was a bit like a free puppy. It might be free at the point they give you it, and then you have to invest a lot in it. But again, it is really changing the way we deliver services, and it is hugely changing the way we have to skill up our staff to use things, and also the way we deliver training. So we need to make sure our staff can use these applications, but it's also helping us deliver training, and again, I think you're getting a presentation on that later. But I was thinking about the skills that our staff need now in this changing world. This one is one that's often forgotten, because if we are giving over our services to somebody else to run, this is a skill that not many of us in IT departments have, and it's, if you like, vendor management. And the reason I put a handshake is actually because it's probably vendor partnership. We need to work with our suppliers more now to deliver the services that we need, but we also need to do things like monitor SLAs, monitor contracts, skills that often we don't have, that I think we will need in the future. Okay, fourth thing I was going to talk about. Again, I did say this sounds a bit like stating the bleeding obvious, but you know, social media has really grown, and it is changing the way we communicate. Not just the way we communicate with our customers, with our users, but the way we communicate internally. There's been a study recently of companies, private sector companies, which showed that they used social media to communicate internally more than they did externally with their customers. So again, you know, big impacts on the way we deliver services and the way we use services. The interesting thing about social media, I think, is that it's very much a pull. You take the information you want when you need it. Whereas if you look at some of our other collaboration tools that we've been using for years, like email, it's very much push. You get an email whether you want it or not. Whereas social media is very much more pull. There was a nice quote that I liked from Clay Shirky, who said it's not information overload, it's filter failure. You know, it's not that there's too much information, we're just getting all of it instead of what we need. The other thing that's I think connected with the growth into social media is the change in the way different services, the way different technologies grow and impact. This is quite a nice slide. That it shows that it took 75 years at the top for the telephone to reach 50 million users. It took the radio 38 years. It took the web 4 years, Facebook 3.5. Going down to Angry Birds took 35 days to reach 50 million users. That's quite a rapid change in impact and growth. We've got students coming in now, this terrifies me, that were born in 1995. Now, I think I've got t-shirts older than that. They've never lived in a world where you can't pause live TV and rewind it and watch it again. I still think that's magic, you know. I don't know how that works. And they live in a world where they're always connected. There are more text messages sent in a day now than there are people on the planet. And this just shows how consumption is spreading. And again, I go back to the, you know, it was only 3 years since the iPad was invented, and just look at the rise in tablets now. So this has again changed user expectations. And people, there's this growing demand for 24/7 and mobile connectors, people are collaborating on the move. And I think what's changed is people want interaction. They want a conversation. They don't want to send you an email and get an email back. They actually want much more interaction and conversation. And I've just realised I've forgotten to do something, and I'm going to do something I don't normally do in a presentation. I'm going to go backwards, because I want to find a slide, because I forgot to play something, and I just think it sums up. Right, I'm going to play. This is if you are, I think if you work in IT, an IT director, this is what your customers sound like at the moment. If this works.
We want this and that. We demand a share in that and most of that, some of this and all of that. Less of that and more of this and plenty of this. Another thing, we want it now. I want it yesterday. I want more tomorrow. And the demands will all be changed then, so stay awake.
Now, those of you who've heard Billy Connolly say that live may notice that we have to censor it slightly. That's why there was some little hiccups in there. But, you know, that is, I think, you know, how sometimes our customers appear to us at the moment. They just want everything. They want it now. In fact, they want it yesterday. So how has this growth in social media changed the way we communicate? Well, we all know we've got to use different ways of communicating. The only examples I really know are the ones from us, so I'm going to show you what we do. I'm not saying it's right, just showing you what we do. We have a Twitter feed. That's the Kick's Twitter feed. What you may not be able to see is that almost every post on there is a conversation, it's a response. When we first started this, we used to post things. We used to say, this is a new service that's coming out, or we're going to have some downtime here, or we're going to have this. We don't anymore. We have conversations with people, and the bulk of our Twitter feed now is actually a conversation. Our customers, all of our customers, are increasingly vocal, and they actually want a conversation with us. We can't just listen to them. So the bulk of our Twitter timeline is actually not, it's a conversation, not announcements. We use Facebook as our primary communication tool now with students. We only send one email a month at the absolute maximum to students, and I will mention this rather weird, say it like a hero later. And when I looked at this particular Facebook page, I'd only did a screenshot last night, I think. You can see, again, you may not be able to see, but you'll get the gist of it, that all the people who've posted on our Facebook page there get a response. There's always a response going back from Kicks. Now, that's an interesting thing in terms of skills, because to do that requires a skill that's somewhere between comms and the help desk. And when we first started doing this, we had a lot of tension in the department, because it was our comms team handling Twitter and Facebook, and students were posting on here, I can't get this to work, or I can't do that, or how do I do the other, and our comms team were replying. That didn't necessarily go down too well with our help desk staff. One of the main reasons was because nothing was being logged. And we have, you know, like most of you do, run service desks, you log everything, you can see trends, and our comms team would go in and say, we think there's something wrong with such and such, because we've had 6 Facebook posts about it in the last week, and we'd go, where are the logs? What did they say? Who were they from? Well, we don't know, because on Twitter people don't use their real names. And so we've had to sort of upskill our comms team to be able to deal with technical issues and also help our help desk team deal with con stuff. One of the things that did amuse me when I was looking at this was, and again, you probably can't read it, this is a query that came through on help desk that says, I'm having trouble when I try to play the game Path of Exile, could you check it out for me? And they get into a long discussion with our comms team, which finishes up by saying, our network guys are looking at it. Now, the reason for that is that you might think students come to university to do academic work, which of course they do, and maybe we shouldn't be answering queries like this, but these are students who live up here in the residences. We provide the network for them up here. When they're here, this is their home. This is where they live. This is where they have their social life. If they were at home, they would be able to play Path of Exile. So why shouldn't we help them do social stuff when they're up here? And that's again, been a bit of a shift in what we do. The other thing we do is we create engaging videos. We use video to communicate with students. Students love short, sharp videos to be communicated with. We know they don't read email, so we try other ways. And this is our YouTube page. And we've had, for the last year, we employed an intern who was a student because it dawned on us that we haven't got the skills to communicate with students. We're not 18 or 19. Some of us are a long way off. And so we wanted to find out how to communicate with students properly. So we employed a student intern and said, produce some videos that you think students will watch and like. And he did. And one of the first ones he did, I'm going to try and play it to you, or I'm going to play a few seconds to you, was about staying safe online, because again, it's one of the issues we have. Now, I'm going to play you a few seconds of this and see if you can spot something in the first few seconds that made me go, when I first watched it. See if it works.
Staying safe online. Your internet access at university is completely unrestricted, so you're welcome to play games and watch prawn videos to your heart content. But you still need to use some common sense when using our network. For starters, you obviously can't download or torrent copyrighted games, books, films, and music. You're welcome to use social networks, even on campus computers, but you need to think before you post. If you're not happy with your family, tutors, complete strangers, or future employers...
We'll stop it there. That actually is Kieran, who was our intern who produced that video and played every part in it, as you can tell. And that went down really well. I went, when they said you can watch prawn videos to your heart's content, but you know, it was funny, and the students thought it was really good. So our intern left, because we only employed him for a year, and we thought we'd get another. So we got another intern, who is a student, who I discovered afterwards is also on the local stand-up comedy circuit. We asked him to produce a video, and one of the issues we have is students not saving files. They just don't save them, and then they lose them, and the bulk of the calls to our help desk are about the files going missing. So they produced this one. Now, when he came to show me this, I again went, and I'll only play you a few seconds of it. I'll play you it first and then talk about it.
He was just an ordinary student at the University of Sheffield, but after an accident involving a radioactive spreadsheet, Fred Muse became File Man.
Which Chuckle Brother do you think is the real one? Paul is the real one, and the other one is a ghost.
Right, I'm going to go and get a coffee. Watch my laptop while I'm away.
Wait, Tom! Aren't you going to save your files first?
No. Saving files is for squares.
Never fear! Files!
Now, this video goes on for another couple of minutes in this vein. You may notice that File Man is not a man, which was the first thing I spotted. It's Nat, who works with our comms team. What was really interesting with this video was the reaction it got internally, the reaction it got from our own department. It was patronising, juvenile, I can't remember all the other words they used. Students loved it. We got more comments on Facebook. I write a blog, and my blog post about it. We got more comments than with any other communications tool we'd ever used. So I suppose I was using that just to illustrate how one of the skills we need is how to communicate with a huge group of our users, which are students, which may be different to how we want to communicate with each other. Anyway, and the other thing, I would just put this up to show that I asked my comms team to tell me what their communication strategy was, and they came back and said it's not a comms strategy, it's a conversation strategy. And so we have a conversation strategy. I'm going to whiz on, I'm conscious of time. So what effect does that have on us? Well, how many times did we used to say on the help desk, we don't support that? Phew, what? You can't get your email on that, you're not connecting that to my network. And we can't do that anymore. You know, basically, we don't own anything. People bring their own stuff in. We don't own the software. They can download what they like. We don't control access. People use any browser they want. Multiple operating systems devices, and by stuff goes anywhere. It's a bit of this, you know, Dropbox, we can save things anywhere. A little example I'll give you there is if a few years ago, if you were a lecturer and wanted to make a video, you phoned up the television service, you booked a time in, probably 2 months away, they came, they set up the cameras and the stands, they filmed it for you, they took it away, they edited it, they uploaded it to one of our media servers, and lo and behold, it was done. Now, you get a little digital camera, you film it yourself, and you upload it to YouTube that afternoon. Bypass the IT department, just do it yourself. And a lot of that, one of the impacts it has on us, and certainly in terms of skills, is security. I've shown you the picture of Steve Jobs. Now, what was the first app that came out after that? Which app did all of our vice chancellors go, wow, that's fantastic, I'll just put my files in Dropbox. That's when they weren't doing this, of course. So I think there is a big issue, particularly in terms of training and education in terms of security. There's such a thing as the information security triangle: confidentiality, availability, and integrity. If you increase one of those, you decrease the others, and we have massively increased availability of data. We have to look at the risks of that. We have to design things to be private. We have to be absolutely conscious of cybersecurity. People are out to get into our systems. We are being attacked, I can tell you this, all the time. We know we are, because we're monitoring it. They're not just after our personal data, they're after our research data. The state-sponsored cybersecurity after our research data. So there's a massive education of our users to go on. Rolling out online security skills training is really important. We have to make people realise how important it is they do this. The other thing I think we need to do is do things differently. See, that's bottles hanging from a tree, quite like that. And the reason I put a picture of Andy Murray up is because I was talking to a TV producer, somebody who used to be a TV producer, the other week, and we were talking about watching tennis. And the umpire, you would think, had the best spot in a tennis match. He or she sits in the middle and watches the tennis. Where do we televise tennis from? We televise it from the end. And the reason we do that is that when televisions first started televising tennis, the aspect ratio of television was 6:4, and you got the best view on a television from the end of the court. That's changed. Right, television's any shape you want now. Cameras are any aspect ratio you need. But we still televise tennis from the end of the court because that's what we've always done. And that is my lesson, I suppose, is we mustn't do things just because we've always done them like that. We've got to look at different ways of doing things if we're going to cope with all these changes that are happening around us. We have to be flexible and agile in the way we do things. They're rapper dancers, by the way. And I don't think you can be much more flexible than rapper dancers. We have to be able to facilitate things more. We have to cope with things happening to us quicker than we've ever done in the past and respond. We have to support and encourage innovation, not try and hold it down. And I think, we have to play a leading role in that. I'm going to just finish with a couple of slides. One, which is a survey that we did recently into our own student union did it. And they asked students about the use of technology in teaching and learning. And the top comment was not about new technology at all. What the students said, they wanted staff to use the technology we've got and use it consistently. And that wasn't just the learning environment, Blackboard or Google Apps. It was how to use PowerPoint on projectors and PCs in the lecture theatres. And it was one of the biggest comments that came through. Please, can we educate our staff and help them use technology and use it consistently across the institution. I thought that was an interesting point. So my final slide really is, this is what I think we have to do. We have to welcome new technologies. We have to ensure that our staff and students have got the digital literacy skills to embrace them and use them. The third point I'm going to make, because I feel this quite strongly, is actually, yes, we can teach people, we can train people, but everybody has got responsibility for their own development. You know, it is the 21st century. I'm fed up with people saying to me, oh, I don't really know how to use that. Never really used that before. You know, we have got to get people to take some responsibility for their own development. We've got to think about what new skills our staff and students need to embrace these new technologies. We've got to do things differently. We can't carry on doing things the way we've always done them. But it is not just technology. Technology is no magic bullet. It's not going to solve anything. That last point should have said it's people and processes, not technology. It isn't just technology, and there is no room for complacency. Things are changing so fast, we have to move with them. I'm sure when Isambard Kingdom Brunel built this railway, he thought it was going to last forever, and it didn't. So that's, I think, a good example of how there is no room for complacency. We have to learn to change. I think I've finished with about 30 seconds to spare. So thank you for listening. I've put my contact details there. I am on Twitter, I do write a blog. Contact me, you know, have an argument with me if you want. If you don't agree with what I've said, that's fine. And thank you for listening. Have you got time? Yeah. I'm going to move away from that speaker.
Okay, well, thank you, Christine. That was amazing. I found that really interesting, engaging. It wasn't stating the bleeding obvious. So, do we have any questions from the floor?
I think they want you to speak into
Yeah.
the microphone. Because it's being recorded, I think you probably need to speak into the microphone.
Hello, I'm Christine Mackenzie, and I work for the IT training and documentation team at the University of Aberdeen. Okay. Currently, our major problem is trying to get the academics to keep up with the students, and I think everybody experiences the same problem. The academics seem to think they know it all, and they don't want to be told how to use PowerPoint. They think they know how to do it. But every time something goes wrong, they contact the service desk and they expect instant results from the service desk as well. And I'm just wondering how we're ever going to get around that problem, because there's always going to be this huge gap between the student population and the academic. It doesn't matter how young the academics are who are coming in now, there's always going to be a big gap between school leavers and academics. And I'm just wondering how we're going to bridge that. And we get service desk calls that get sent to us, assigned to us as a team. And you look at the call and you think, why don't you just Google that? You'll get the answer. But they want us to, so they put in a support works call, and we have to go and Google it for them and get back to them. And this is just all a waste of resources as far as I can see.
I agree totally. And I think there is a gap. I don't think it's necessarily always between students and staff, because we tend to think of students as you know, one mass, and they're not. They're really diverse as well. And I think one of the issues we've been thinking about is, what do we do about the students who haven't got the skills that some of their colleagues have? Yeah. And again, with staff, you know, we have got some really good digitally literate staff and some that aren't. I do think it's an enormous problem. I was hoping you were all going to solve that today. I thought that was your job. I mean, I agree totally with what you said. Yes. It is very frustrating. You know, we get not only calls to service desk. My favourite are when they ring me. You know, I've just tried to give a lecture. Your AV is useless. It's not, is it? No, it's really good. I've just tried to give a lecture. I had a movie clip. You put PCs in lecture theatres, haven't got sound cards in. There was no sound. And I've been into 2 lecture theatres and it won't work in either. And you go and you say, well, you know that little thing that says mute? If you turn it off, the sound works. And that's a real case that happened to me not long ago. So it is an issue. I don't know, there's peer pressure, I think, works. We found that, I'm going back a few years now, but when we first launched our VLE, our virtual learning environments, we put it into our portal whether there was anything in that course or not. So we put empty courses in. I'm going to invent one now, it's the wrong one. I'll invent Law 101, you know, nobody had done anything in it, but you could see it through the portal. So students were coming to us and saying, it's broken, I've just been into this course and nothing there. we were saying, no, your lecturer's not putting anything in it. So we were pushing the students into the academic departments to ask the academics why there was nothing there. And I mean, there are colleagues here from Sheffield who probably know the answer to this better than me, but I think peer pressure actually works.
Did that work, yeah?
That particular one worked, yeah. We had stuff, I mean, the trouble is when you do it that way, you might end up with lecturers just banging their notes in on PowerPoint slides, which was that comment that the students said, can they use it consistently? If you actually went and read the comments, they were saying, please can lecturers not just put their PowerPoint slides and notes up when we've got other lecturers building really interactive stuff into the learning environment. So
I recognise that comment from the survey.
It is a big issue.
Our IT services survey, the student one said something very similar. Why can't the staff be educated to use the information facilities properly?
And I'm sure it's something you can discuss later. I'm looking around the room and there are faces I recognise who are learning technology, so I'm sure we'll be able to answer that question better than me. Sorry, I'm moving because it doesn't matter where I stand, the sun's in my eyes.
That's great. Yeah, we take the approach at our institution where we put all our academics through the same blackboard and Turnitin training, and we introduce standards that they had to adhere to and aspirational standards that they may want to do. And then we got all the students to audit the blackboard modules to see whether they'd done it. And we're looking at moving into phase 2 of that to increase the standards this next year. So, do we have some more questions or any comments? Okay.
Hi, we have a walk-up IT desk, and I just wonder, how do you manage the expectations of users who walk up with any device, I mean, from all over the world, and just expect the poor, you know, it's usually some lower grade staff member, oftentimes somebody who's recently graduated, who may have limited knowledge, to just be able to support that device. How do you manage those expectations?
That I suppose goes back to that slide I put where we say we don't support that. We've now changed it, so we do support it. We actually do have quite highly trained staff on our frontline services for students, and yet students will walk in and go, I've got that, how do I get my email on it? I think one of the things you have to do is you have to develop your services so that it is easy to get them on things. I mean, I said we use Google. Actually, Google interacts very well with most devices. With most devices, it's quite easy to set up so you can get your email and everything. You mentioned Googling for the answer. You know, yeah, our staff will Google for the answer. And there's a wealth of information out there about how to do stuff these days. So we do try and help everybody. We often have to say, whoa, really sorry, we've never seen one of those before, but we'll do our best. And in fact, I think I'm looking around, I can't see any. Oh, I can. There's at least one person here from our support team. He'd probably answer that better than me, but I think it can be quite a challenge, really, to work out how to do it.
So you make a point, sometimes you make appointments and then
Yep.
you come back.
Yep. Yes, we can do that as well. And we also, we do try and buy gadgets so that we've got them in the department so that we can try and work out, how they work before people come in and say, how do I use that? Is that a good answer? Sorry, there's somebody who has to deal with these sorts of questions. Anybody else?
Okay, any other questions?
Are you ready for your coffee now? I am going to be around for the next half an hour or so if people want to grab me a coffee.
Okay, right, coffee is back in the bar area, and then if you could reconvene in here at 11:20 when we'll do the case study awards. Thank you. Thanks again, Christine, that was amazing.